what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh. I'm with the band, your front row ticket to interviews and jam sessions with up-and-coming artists.
Hey, this is Chad Austin, and today on I'm with the Band on The Mesh, we have Dr. David Abernathy from the band Puddingstone. They've been around for almost 30 years, and we're going to find out just what a Puddingstone is and what makes one tick. Let's take a listen. Today on The Mesh, we have Puddingstone and Dr. David Abernathy, leader of Puddingstone. How are you doing today, David?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing great now that you're here. We've waited here for 2 hours for you. We're supposed to have been here at 2 o'clock today.
Oh, I was told 3:30.
Did you not get the
musicians are?
Did you not get the memo?
No, we didn't get the memo.
MM, please make a note of the memo.
More importantly, we can't read either. So
That's right.
They're just dumb drummers.
No, let's start with that. So you are the drummer for Puddingstone.
Well, I play a lot of things in Puddingstone, but I was trained in percussion in my youth. In Puddingstone, though, I play hammer dulcimer, which is kind of like drumming.
Sure. It's percussive. Absolutely.
It just has to be a stringed instrument. And penny whistle and a little bit of harp and percussion and flutes of different types.
You guys have been around for a long time. I don't even know the exact date. When did you guys first get together?
In 1976, Mike Willis, who's my oldest friend, and I got together. I happened to be his section leader at Lenore High School back when we were kids. And he went off to school different places, and I went off to different places. And we got back together in 76, and I said, guess what I'm playing now? I'm playing a hammer dulcimer. He said, guess what I'm playing? I'm playing a harp. And so we put the two together, and that's how Puddingstone started.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So when was your first album?
Well, we didn't make an album. Actually, it was only a tape. We sold it sometime around 1981, I think, was our first one. And it's called Whistle, Strings, and Things. We've never revamped it. It was just our first effort at trying to record. And
Really?
At that time, it was a trio that we'd moved up and had a flautist with us at the time.
So I remember, here's some trivia I'll throw to you. I used to be the manager for the sound shop in the Lenore Mall. Mm-hmm. And we sold one of your albums there, which I have somewhere. Mm-hmm. And it was a CD. So this would have been 91 to 92?
Yes. Now in 91, we began to add, we added to the band along around 86 or so and started growing the band. And at that time, we added a fellow by the name of Glenn Hefner, who was a keyboardist. Glenn
from Fantasy Music.
From Lorine and owned a synthesizer shop in Granite Falls.
Fantasy Music.
That's right, on 321.
That's right.
So we added Glenn. And then shortly after that, I had musically conducted Sweeney Todd at the community college, and Chuck Yoder was Sweeney. And that's how I met Denise Baxter Yoder, who was his wife.
And my sixth grade teacher. She hates for me to say that. Hates it. Hey, Denise, since just to let you know.
Yeah, well, she didn't like me announcing that she was a teacher when we were in concert either, so
right.
I had to quit sort of doing that more. Anyway, Denise called one day and said, could I audition for Puddingstone? And I was looking for a storyteller at that time to add to the music. So then it became 5 people. And then later we added Larry Hips as a guitarist. And I had met Larry through John Coffey, having played musicals with John and Larry at Hickory Community Theater for years and years and years. And so Larry joined us. And then later we've always had some shuffling in Puddingstone. We added a fiddler, and the group became 7 people, and it is still 7 people, but with different faces right now.
Right. Now, unless I'm mistaken, Kay and Patrick Crouch.
The new fiddler in the group and also banjo player is Patrick Crouch. I've known Patrick and Kay ever since I moved to Lenore back home in 1981, or 1980 actually. Patrick was a band director at that time, and Kay was teaching, or is still teaching, I think, at the community college.
I had her at the community college as well. Yep.
Yeah, and they have their own music group. They're strictly clean and decent. They're a bluegrass band.
Yep.
And Patrick is a huge supporter of music in Caldwell County in western North Carolina. And one of the things he has is the Caldwell Musician Show in March, which generally is a bluegrass gathering, but not always.
I hope the listeners can appreciate the membership that has been in Puddingstone, because it is such a rich history. I mean, those people are like you said, with Patrick being such a big supporter of local music. But really, Patrick is, Kay is a big supporter, and Denise is as well. Now, the other members I don't know as well, but I know the names. I know who they are and what their roles in this music around here.
Well, we have a new keyboardist. Actually, he's not new. Greg Knight has been with us before and helped us with 2 of our albums back in the late 90s, and then left. He remarried and had multiple responsibilities. He had his own software, still does, business, and is creating software. And I think he just got really tied up with all of this and sort of had to get out of Puddingstone. But Greg is as wonderful a classical pianist as you'll find anywhere. He's played with multiple symphonies all across the area. And I can't speak highly enough of his abilities. He brings a lot to Puddingstone. He did back then. We kind of bore him, I think, in fact, because he's used to playing concertos and that kind of thing. And here I say, "Here, Greg, do some panning of some chords on the synthesizer." And he's looking at me like, "Oh boy." But he said to me when he was leaving the first time, he says, "One thing Puddingstone has taught me is to listen."
Right.
Because a lot of what we do is up here in our heads.
Right.
It's not written down. And so if one of us has a stroke, we're out of luck. We won't remember the piece,
Yeah, you mentioned Glenn Hefner. Now, I have a lot of history with Glenn, and I don't know where he's at now. He went to go work for Elisis, I think, and become like a rep.
He did, and he's still a rep. He's still selling. And I haven't seen him in years either. But Mike Willis, my harpist, my friend, ran into him just the other day and said that he was selling, I think, microphones or something like the high-end microphones.
I might have heard that too. Now, did you know the rest of the guys he was in fantasy music with, like
I did
Tim?
Not. I knew of them. I had met them all, but I had never really worked with them because I didn't do anything with their band.
Right. Well, it was the Rumblers or whatever it was?
Rumblers, yeah.
They were very good.
Yeah.
They were very, very good. They were top-notch players. Mark Bumgarner, I think, was the bass player. He's still around, still very good.
Yeah.
I wish people understood the history that is in this area, because if people start getting around into music and they say, "Oh, we got these great bands," or "We've already had great bands," you're just not aware of it yet.
That's right.
Let's talk about the name Puddingstone.
Okay.
And why the name Puddingstone?
Well, it was accidental. When we were a trio, the flautist and the harpist and myself, we were trying to come up with a name, because at that time it was just a duo, just Mike and me. We were playing in Mike's girlfriend's house, and her name was Pat, so we called it Patty's Pals. And we were rehearsing there, and the reason we rehearsed there partly was because it's the only place we had to rehearse, and secondly, because it was a big wooden room. And so the dulcimer and the harp would just reverberate off these walls. It sounded really good. It's your own reverb is what it was.
Sure.
And it sounded great. But then we added a third person. We felt like we needed to change it from Patty's Pals to something else. The flautist's mother worked for a furniture retail store, and she came across a address called Puddingstone. And she just called and said, "That's a pretty name." And I liked the name immediately, having no idea what it meant. And so we took the name. We just adapted it, not knowing what it was. Well, it wasn't until about a year or so later that I happened to pick up a magazine that was a engineering magazine, and right on the front of it said, "The argument of why not to build the Golden Gate Bridge on Puddingstone." Well, then I began to really search, well, what does Puddingstone really mean? Well, Puddingstone happens to be a real stone, but it exists out of compression of minerals and mud and whatever else might be, and sits at the bottom of oceans and deep lakes and bays like in California. And so there was an argument you couldn't build and sink these pillars down on top of Puddingstone. but actually did, because obviously they built the bridge and it's still there, so it worked. The Indians in western North Carolina would mine pudding stone out of lakes and thought it was a healing stone because each one is completely different. So they each had their own soul. That was the relationship they made to it, kind of like stars in the sky kind of thing. Here it is, it's different stones, And you can go up to western North Carolina and buy it in some of the mining shops up there. It's quite pretty, and each one is different. You move just an inch to the side, it doesn't look like the one you just came from.
See, I thought puddingstone was like an English term for like a weird muffin.
Well, I would have thought something like that too. And the neat thing about it is that puddingstone really means conglomerate. Well, if you look at the band, that's exactly what we are. Historically, we can have done and can still do anything from medieval music, Renaissance music. I even had a fife and drum corps at one time that we carried over into Puddingstone. Folk music, Celtic, jazz, bluegrass, classics. We can do it all. So when you try to label us, it doesn't work.
It doesn't, but there's a lot of people in this area that would refer to you as that Christmas band.
Well, we seem to be very popular at Christmas time.
Right.
Well, I think one of the values in Puddingstone, or the thing that I see about it, that when each person comes into the group, and new people included, it's a different soul. And so that person brings their own way of thinking about music to us. And so we reflect that musically. One of the things we try to do is not play the music based on personalities. A lot of music you hear is based on that person's personality. It may be fast or driving because that person's sort of fast and driving. Or it might be slow and kind of depressed because that person's kind of slow and depressed. We try to look at a piece of music for the sake of the music and let it play itself. We just happen to be the instruments of that music.
Right.
So take a tune and we'll break it down to just bare essentials and then start building from that based on what each person feels from their own heart.
Right.
Can go into it. And that comes up with unusual arrangements that I think, just my own personal opinion, I think are stellar. Sometimes we don't do as well as others. Sometimes we produce things that shock me how pretty it is.
Right. Well, you guys have very rich textures. I am an audio engineer. I have a studio at home as well, and I'm very critical of recordings for that reason. And I love to work with textures. And Denise and I, to the audience, we're talking about Denise Baxter Yoder again. We're in a songwriting class together last year, and I had the privilege of hearing some recent Puddingstone music, and it was very organic. I want to call it wooden. That's the way I like to refer to it as. It was very, very pretty, and I think that's a good way to be able to describe the music that I have heard at Puddingstone, regardless of whether it's Christmas music or whether it's any of the other genres that you're playing. And while I'm talking about that, why don't we let the audience hear what we're talking about and go ahead and listen to a track?
I'd love for them to.
All right, let's do it.
We'll get back to your show in a moment. Just a reminder, you're listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Find out more at themesh.tv and give us feedback on what you like.
Hey, we'll get right back to our interview in just 1 second, but of course it is time for Chad's playlist. And as a special treat, I'm going to turn this over to our engineer, Chris, and we're going to do Chris's playlist. Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Chad. A band that I've kind of been following for a while now is Miniature Tigers. They have 2 albums out, and they're about to release a third in 2012 that'll be called Mia Farrow. Their other 2 are Tell It to the Volcano and Fortress, both of which are really good. I recommend you check them out. They're kind of pop music, but with lots of nice irony and indie vibes as well. So give a listen.
Dr. Abernathy, I want to ask you about your studio.
We started, I built their first studio for them 20 years ago or 25 years ago, I guess. And at that time, as you know, having your own studio, the industry has changed tremendously. Mm-hmm. There are still big recording studios out there with the multi-million-dollar machines to do things with, and there's no question how wonderful those machines are.
Right.
But home studios have become a big thing because the electronics have developed so far that you can get wonderful recordings sitting in your own home.
Right.
And that's what sort of happened to us. This band, because it has so many eclectic instruments from rackets and crumb horns and things used in the 1600s and on and back even into the 1100s, accompanied with synthesizers used in the 21st century, it's a hard group to move from one place to the other to record. Even to set up for a concert takes us hours and hours of putting wires together and miking these ancient instruments just right and blending them with the modern instruments. So I decided, it's too hard to try to run a practice as I was doing and the others working as they were doing and be in somebody's studio 40 miles from home or 50 miles from home until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So we said, we'll build our own studio. So that's what we did.
So what was your first?
The first thing that we had was reel-to-reel.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you get it from Glenn?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so I got my first one.
8-track reel-to-reel is what it was, and that's when we were a trio.
Was it a quarter inch, half inch?
Yeah, and then we moved out of reel-to-reel and went to, so it was all analog in terms of input, and then we moved out of the final mix was in digital, and we had a Sony. I forget what the name of that thing was now. I'm sorry, I can't remember it because it's been sitting on a shelf for 20-some years. But it was a mix down to an RDAT tape.
Oh, right.
And that was a digital tape.
That's right.
And that's what we sent then to the manufacturer.
Right.
And then we moved into the Alesis 8-track digitals.
Is that the ADATs?
The ADATs.
Sure.
We had 2 of those, and we recorded into that. And it wasn't a matter of a couple of years where they were passé, and we moved into a Tascam 24-track.
Was this an actual like a Porter Studio style unit? The Tascam?
It was sat in a rack, and
I know what you're talking about.
Had a almost like a DVD type recording device for it.
Right.
And we still had the analog Tascam mixer input. It was a 48 input mixer for us.
Right.
And then we went from that into this Tascam recorder. And then that was mixed down by a fellow by the name of Josh Sacco, who I can't say enough about. Josh is an engineer that works in Charlotte. And for the Ground Crew, I think is who he still works for. It was a big recording group up there. And I met Josh when we were playing with the Symphony, Western Piedmont. He was recording them. And he just fell in love with Puddingstone. And so he would travel from Charlotte to our recording sessions to record us. And he was our engineer. And then the latest thing we've done is we finally got out of that, and the last 2 albums have been recorded off of software. Now everything's gone to, we use Apple
Logic.
Yeah. Excuse me, I could have drawn a blank there. Yeah, Logic, and we have the big Apple machines there, and our computers, and we record now into a straight digital. So now we're digital.
Sure.
Digital input, digital record, and digital output,
Now, do other people get to come in and use the studio, or is it strictly a Puddingstone?
We have not done that, partly because I'm not a recording engineer.
Right.
I think I recorded Alan Finley one time in his vocal group.
Right. The a cappella group?
In one of the studios. And I recorded lots of children who were looking for scholarship money to give them a CD in order to send off to the schools or take with them to the schools. So I've done that, not for any pay. I just did that free for them, so they would have a chance to get out there. But I have not recorded other groups because I just I don't know how to use that software. I buy it. Kind of being a physician, the one thing that's happened to me, I've been sort of the sugar daddy for the group at one time when we had business, and bought all these things for everybody to use.
Right.
But I have never tried to profit from it, but partly because I just don't have enough know-how to run the machinery. It's a learning curve.
Well, the Logic software that you were referring to is very popular, not just with Apple users, or Mac users, excuse me, but singer-songwriters, because it's built to be a singer-songwriter tool.
Yeah.
So, and I haven't had the luxury of working with it. I've worked in Pro Tools, I've worked in Cubase, but I haven't tried the Logic yet because I'm PC-based.
Yeah.
I just heard the hisses come from the listening audience. One day I'll switch.
Well, maybe if I can retire sometime, I can use this stuff I bought all these years. But right now, it's just there for the production of Puddingstone, but I have to get other people to come actually run it.
Right.
Me.
So how often does Puddingstone get together just to rehearse?
Every Monday night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we rehearse every Monday night, and we've been doing that for 20-some years. And we are pretty much sticklers. If you're with the group, you're with the group. And you get to take whatever we make, whether it be on albums or pay, but you're there every Monday night because it is a consort to some extent.
Sure.
And you can't not be there. We need your input. That statement I made earlier about your soul in that music has to be there. Otherwise, that's missing.
Right.
And the audience may not know it, but we know it.
I think the listeners know it too. I'm really big, and I had this conversation earlier today on camaraderie within bands. The band that I play for have been together for 14 years this year, and there's very little turnover. We're all very, very close friends. The bands that I listen to on a regular basis, I have found that they also have a lot of camaraderie within the band, and there may be a leader, but that's just to give them focus. But everybody is pretty much an equal contributor, and that way you really do have a unique formula, and that's important. So what you're saying is that Puddingstone has the same essence.
We do, and we have 3 original members that have been with it for 25 years. The others have turned over for various reasons, either moved away, death, changes in venue for their families, whatever. And that's the other thing about Puddingstone. As Bill Wilson at Comma Center said about us one time, we're the best kept secret in North Carolina. Why? Because we have families or we have jobs outside of music.
Right.
And we just can't drop what we're doing and fly to Kalamazoo tomorrow.
Yeah, well, Denise doesn't have a job.
Well, some of them have retired now, you see.
Oh, that's right. Denise is retired.
That's right. Exactly. And that's changing. So Puddingstone is beginning to change a little bit in that a lot of the members, including myself, are getting to an age where retirement would like to be possible. Then maybe we could play more. But up until this point in time, those of us who are teaching or have our own business, we just can't leave it and go someplace to play.
Well, for the listeners, Puddingstone is actually played for our producer's wedding,
Yes.
Mary Margaret Baker, and her husband Wes. And also, the studio here that we're in right now is in the Jackson Group building down in the dungeon called the Jackson Group Interactive, and you play for the grand opening of this facility as well.
Yes.
And I have to mention that, otherwise they will hit me. They'll do it. They hit me, and they use big sticks too, bigger than me, which is not saying a lot because I'm about the size of an ant. I was really hoping that the Puddingstone name was going to be something from an English derivative because I had a whole skit that I was going to do, but it's not really funny because I'm not really good at English accents. But I was going to do it on a whim, but we'll spare the audience with that one. I'll tell you what. I appreciate you coming in today, David. I feel funny calling you David because you worked hard for your doctor.
That's my name.
Well, thank you for coming in and talking to us today.
Sure, I've enjoyed it.
And giving us a little bit of the history of Puddingstone. Hopefully this will help expand the fan base even more.
Well, I hope so. We don't do a lot of honking of our own horn. We just sort of play by invitation. But we've had really great gigs.
Absolutely. That makes a big difference. Since it is the season to be jolly, and let's take it out on a Merry Christmas, and why don't you give us a song to listen to?
Sounds great to me. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, David.
Just hear those sleigh bells ring, ting, jingling too. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride with you. Outside the snow is falling and friends are calling you. Come on, it's a great time for a sleigh ride with you. Cheeks are rosy and comfy cozy are we. We're snuggled up like two birds, gotta be. Let's take that road there and sing a chorus or two. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride with you.
Thanks for listening. You got a question or suggestion for The Mesh? We now have the Mesh line, 828-619-0048. You got a question or comment? Just use that number. Or you can email us at info@themesh.tv.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.